you could trade George Kittle. Now, I don't even know what George Kittle's worth anymore. Last year was a throwaway year, and this year hasn't been any better. Should the 49ers trade George Kittle? A. And B, what's he worth at this point?
Yes. And I love George Kittle. He's one of my favorite players, but yes. And the reason for that is if I look back at the 49ers I grew up with, Ross Dwelly reminds me of someone, and that is part of my equation. Ross Dwelly reminds me of Brett Jones. Humble, solid, mean, massively strong, means nobody has no good intentions for the defense. He's like a linebacker mentality playing tight end. Excellent hands. He's not the blocker that Kittle is, but he's not a bad blocker. He's not the yak kind of guy that Kittle is, but he's not easy to tackle. He's a solid, inexpensive, low draft capital player that a lot of teams would be happy to get in their draft. Someone like Ross Dwelly. I think the team can win with Ross Dwelly and Kyle Juszczyk. By getting rid of Kittle, if you can get a first rounder for him, it can go somewhere else. So Kittle is this dynamo, this bombshell of a player who's not playing, and that happens a lot. And we here's the thing: this team is all about having injured players on the bench, and they cannot have that as their starting core. That's just not going to work. So they are in a position where I feel the decision has actually already been made. Whether they have made it is another debate, but they have to do this.
He's 28. All right. He just turned 28. Last year, he was 27. He missed 8 games. This year, he's going to miss his second. I mean, he's going to miss at least 3 games. I just think that he needs to go to a team that doesn't have this injury issue. You go be the one player on a team that's a massive injury question. On this team, they need guys who are durable, and you're not one of them. And he's too expensive to be missing games. They give him $16 million a year. I mean, $1 million a game, and he's going to miss a few of them a season because he's not a wide receiver. He plays a very high impact, high violence position, and his body seems to be breaking down. Got to trade him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just been a long time since we've seen him do what Kittle can do. It really has. I mean, honestly, I think the best Kittle we ever saw was pre-Garoppolo.
That's true.
So
true. Honestly, his best season was 2018. Mullins, his best season was 2018. Anyway, what can you get for George?
Thing, though, I don't think they can get a first rounder for him. Oof. I think it's a second rounder. I think so.
Because he's expensive and he misses time.
If they can bundle and trade back up into the first round, that would be good because a couple of second rounders, it depends on who they trade with those as far as where that draft pick falls and how valuable it would really be. But I think they should trade him for a second rounder to a really bad team.
Yeah.
And that way it will at least be higher up in the draft to where they might be able to trade into the back end of the first round. You know, with a team like, say, the Patriots or something like that or something. But just enough that they can climb the ladder. But around, first rounder pick 30 is not what I'm talking about. It needs to be middle of the first round that they get back into so they can get the corner potentially that they want.
So Niner fans, if you're trying to figure out ways to get first round picks next year, I don't think Jimmy's going to have to get traded this offseason. I'm not.
Jimmy's a fifth
that'll
round.
Be for like a 6th round pick, something like that.
Yeah, I 5th, 6th round, absolutely.
But then if you want a first, the options here are your head coach, your tight end, your number 1 wide receiver, or Bosa. And there's a lot of season left to play, but it doesn't look like the Niners. Honestly, they need to be skeptical with Bosa too. For the same reason, everything I said about Deebo Samuel applies to Bosa. He's healthy this year. Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know. They got some really tough questions here. They got to figure out who are the people we can build around for 10 years. Like Fred Warner's one of those guys. He's available all the time. Buckner was one of those guys. You let him go. Is Bosa one of those guys? Is Deebo one of those guys? Kittle isn't. But you don't really know with Deebo and Bosa, and I think the fact that there's a question means that you should probably err on the side of caution. But I can't make that decision for you. Kittle, though, I think that's pretty cut and dry.
Yes, I do as well. And again, we don't need what he is at his position if we have a decent offensive line. I would rather get rid of Kittle and have a Pro Bowl right guard or right tackle or something like that.
Here's another thing. quarterback's going to be Trey Lance going forward. Right now, Trey Lance as a passer is the exact opposite of Jimmy. Jimmy throws changeups over the middle. Lance throws fastballs outside. Okay? He doesn't really want to throw over the middle because he knows he misses high, and he's very good at not turning the ball over. That's who he's been forever. And he's just much more comfortable throwing to the outside because he has a cannon, and those misses are incomplete passes. George isn't going to get as many targets with Trey for a while. He's going to be throwing to wide receivers, running comebacks and outs and goes. That's good. His passing chart is going to look like the exact opposite of Jimmy's, and that's going to affect George. And so paying a tight end wide receiver money may not make sense when you really need wide receivers with this quarterback.
I think that's why Kyle Shanahan played Travis Benjamin, was to stretch the field vertically down the sideline, and it didn't happen. Right. But he should have done that with the guy he has chemistry with, and that's Sherfield.